Hello, and welcome to a very special video tribute commemorating the 150th anniversary of the seating of the Honorable Joseph H. Rainey. My name is Lorna Rainey, and it's my privilege to be your host for this short but important film. Joseph Rainey was born into slavery on a rice plantation in South Carolina in 1832. Yet, 38 years later, he was sworn in as the very first duly elected Black Congressman on December 12, 1870. We're speaking with Congressman Gregory Meeks, representing the 5th District of New York.
Thank you so very much for having me to talk about such a distinguished and legendary man.
I remember when we first met and we started talking, and you told me that you had a portrait of Congressman Rainey on your office wall.
Well, number one, I should say that my family is from South Carolina, so that has something to do with it. But above and beyond that, when you think about the individuals of whose shoulders you stand on, I'm now the 99th member of African-American member that have ever served in the United States Congress. And so when I think about those that were first and what they had to go through at that particular time, when the Ku Klux Klan and lynching of African Americans were, in many places just the law of the land, and yet Congressman Rainey stood on the floor of the House, and one of the first bill that he put forward was to shut down the Ku Klux Klan and to make sure that the federal government, if the local government would not do that, to bring in the reserves of the federal government to stop them from those activities.
Right.
It just shows what courage and what determination that he had and what he had overcome to get into the United States Congress. His father was a slave.
Right.
And that just shows you so much removed, but yet determined to try to make sure that he was going to make America a better place. And so when I look at that role model, when I look at what he was able to do at that time, doing Reconstruction and the bills that he was passing and the oratory excellence because of the way that he was able to get individuals to support what he was talking about. I think about what he had to go through back then and the other 12 members, African-American members of the Congress at that particular time. And that's the kind of thing that we've been battling right now with this past administration and some of the directions they want to move in. So we need people to understand Joseph Rainey, what he went through, why it was so important for him. And that should then invigorate us that we've got to make sure that now more than ever, we must have the right to vote, maintain that right to vote, and not allow those rights to be ever taken from us, because he fought too hard to get to where he was with the hopes and the dreams that we would continue to make this a more perfect union.
You have a lot to be proud of, but you worked really, really hard.
That's what Congressman Rainey did. No one could stop him.
I know.
He was unstoppable. He had set his goal in his mind of what he wanted to do, and he did it, overcoming all of the odds. And that's what inspires me. When I get tired, I say, I can't do it. I think of him and all that he overcame and all that he did.
Well, I want to thank you for all of the hard work you're doing on behalf of your constituents and on behalf of all of us who are watching your progress. And again, congratulations on your election to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And thank you so much for participating with us in this tribute.
Thank you so very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being the individual that is shedding the light on the life of Congressman Rainey and making sure that we are connected today. Because if we don't understand our past and our history, then we can't really move forward.
I'm standing at an exhibit featuring the desk used by Mr. Rainey when he was in Congress. This is Dr. Clifford Muse. He is the curator at Howard University.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Rainey, and I want to thank your family for making the tremendous deposit of the desk at Howard University.
I've been actually hearing about this desk since I was 3 years old. So for me, and I've seen pictures of it, of course, but for me to actually be here, to see the desk, and to be able to actually touch the desk is a very moving experience for me. So Thank you for, again, allowing us to come in at this particular time and do a tribute to this man on the 150th anniversary of his seating in Congress.
Okay, well, thank you for coming, and I just want to say that we are appreciative of receiving the desk from your family. One of the questions that everyone asks is, how did the desk come here? Why did the desk come here? And I always say that Howard is recognized as one of the preeminent institutions of higher education in the world, and also is a leader in the field of collecting documents and artifacts relating to the people of color worldwide.
I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Believe me, it's our honor. Thank you. Today we are here to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Joseph H. Rainey's seating in Congress.
A lot of what he thought about, of what he wrote about, and what he really inspired to go on for generations after probably occurred while he was sitting at this desk. And this desk is very symbolic of what would have occurred on it, and obviously in his thoughts and stuff that would have come to fruition in his writings, and in his legislations. This museum really crystallizes a lot of Howard's history. And while Howard has been, I would say, a proving ground for many alum who have gone on to do great things, in the museum, it's an opportunity to tie some of those legacies. You know, right behind you, you have Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court Justice. Yes. But he doesn't get to that point if you don't have a Mr. Rainey.
On behalf of the Rainey family, I'd like to thank Howard University, Dr. Frederick, and Dr. Muse for sharing this artifact with the next generation of leaders and scholars. Dr. Donaldson, thank you so much for participating in this 150th commemorative tribute to Congressman Rainey. You're writing about the Congressman for the Smithsonian Magazine. Can you tell us how that came about? Did you pitch to them?
No, it was a reverse. The Smithsonian wanted to do a piece about Reconstruction, and the more they thought about it, they wanted to do an in-depth piece about a figure from Reconstruction. And so they contacted me to see if I would be interested in doing something on Joseph Rainey. Now, the irony about that invitation was that I had thought about him for some time. A year ago, we did an exhibit at the University of South Carolina called Justice for All. And it was a chronicling of the civil rights movement in South Carolina. But we began that study with Reconstruction and looking at some of the pioneering Reconstruction figures like Joseph Rainey. And so we had a kind of a basic outline of that period, and this invitation really pushed us to dig more deeply into that.
That's very exciting. So I'm glad that you decided to focus on him as the focal point of the article.
We were very excited because part of what we did, I mean, you know, as a historian, we look at all the primary sources, letters, photographs, newspapers, congressional records and things of that nature. But as we were going forward, I said, Chris, I want you to go out and see what other information about the Rainey family you can find. And he said, he sent me a note, he said, well, there's a great-granddaughter in New York who's working on a documentary.
In all the research that you've done about the Congressman, what is the most fascinating or surprising thing that you've learned?
We knew that he took a stance on some of the major issues during the Reconstruction period. The other thing that I think many people may not know is that here is the first African-American member of Congress in the House of Representatives, but who endured terror, who endured violence, right, who persevered and was defiant during that entire time period. And so part of what I know is true is that many people have no real understanding of Reconstruction. And I think Joseph Rainey's life provides a very clear window into the triumphs and the tragedy of what occurred during that decade-long period.
How do you see the pretty much change in the Republican Party of then versus the Republican Party of today?
I think Joseph Rainey would sit in awe to see the transformation in Congress. Now, remember, in December of 1870, he was all by himself. Imagine being in Congress, looking around, and seeing no one who looks like you, no one who's had the experiences you've had, right, no one who endured slavery as he had. And then to forecast a century later, 1970, the founding of the Black Congressional Caucus, to see African-American leadership being elected from across the country. I suspect he would know that he set the stage for that, he and others. And yet, these now are African-American leaders who are serving in 2020, who are serving in a remarkable moment in American history where there is a divisive conservative agenda at play, where African-American leadership is being undermined and attacked from the White House. He would find that strikingly similar. And yet, he also would, I think, embrace this moment in time where you do see a surging conservative movement and an agenda that is divisive. At the same time, you see the burgeoning Black Lives Matter movement. And if you were to go back and read the congressional testimony of Joseph Rainey in the 1870s, a central theme is Black Lives Matter. Those lives matter when they're being terrorized and threatened by mobs and Klan. Those lives matter when their votes are being undermined. Those lives matter when their land is being taken from them. Their lives matter when they're being given an unequal education. And so I think he would, again, if he were to forecast forward, see both challenges and opportunities that are strikingly familiar to what he endured during the 19th century.
We've been speaking with Dr. Bobby Donaldson, Associate Professor of History at the University of South Carolina and Director of the Civil Rights Center for History and Research. Again, on behalf of the family, I want to thank you for taking this time to participate in this video tribute to the 150th commemorative anniversary of the seating of the Honorable Joseph H. Rainey. And would you mind telling everyone where we can find the Smithsonian Institute article, when it's coming out, and just tell us a little bit more about how to find it.
So the article is part of the January-February edition, 2021 of the Smithsonian Magazine. And I think it will appear around the day of inauguration. So January 20th.
Wow. We have so much to look forward to in that time period.
Absolutely.
From slavery to the House of Representatives. That actually gave us the perfect title for the upcoming full-length documentary film about Congressman Rainey, entitled Slave in the House.